Welcome one, welcome all to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, Albie Shore, and a lot of great things happening out in West Texas. A lot of great things happening for Texas Tech. It is the summer, so we chilling, and we're just talking about all of these great things that are happening in Tech. Probably one of the funnest summers we have had doing this podcast. And so to talk about the great things this summer, as well as talk to somebody else that we'll be introducing here in a little bit, I got to bring on first my guy that is the people's champ himself, Jeremy Gillen. What's up, Jeremy?
It's good, Albie. What is it? 9 weeks left until the first kickoff for Texas Tech football. So the countdown begins. And which just in my mind means pretty much 9 weeks to figure out podcast content to survive the offseason. Once again, it's kind of like hibernating bears, but we'll get there. Luckily for us, people are starting to just create content for us, and all we have to do is follow up.
That's true. I mean, it's actually finding content this summer ain't that hard. As much as I'm sure people want to listen to our takes on the geopolitical climate, I'm sure people want to hear they want to hear the food content that you got going on. Every week I get like hey, when is Jeremy going to do like live cooking, on the pod? And I say,
Never.
No. Quick aside, Jeremy, sugar on grits, yes or no?
What kind of grits you making? What else do you say?
You already failed. You already failed the answer. This guy calls himself a chef. Anyways, the answer is no. Okay, you people with diabetes. Anyways, so this is the type of stuff that you would hear if we didn't have actual content that came right in front of us. But because we do want to bring on our third guest for the day, a guy who wrote an absolute incredible article on CBS Sports. Make sure to check out that article, the West Texas Boom, inside Texas Tech's bold all-in bet on NIL and the billionaire landman responsible. The guy who wrote that article, good friend of the pod, welcome in Shehan Jeyarajah. What's going on, Shehan?
Hey, nothing much. Thanks for having me. I will say this is, I believe, my 16th interview talking about this article, so I'm hoping to get some new questions. And I'm counting on you guys, of all people, to be able to provide that.
If anybody could give you new questions on number 16, you can count on the two of us to be ones to give it to you. I will say, Shehan, you're actually, so since we have had this iteration of Tortillas and Takes podcast I know a lot of our listeners remember us when we were Air Raid podcast. You are the first 3-time guest on Tortillas and Takes. So we were talking about it beforehand. You are the first 3-time guest. So congratulations. The gift is coming in the mail and it may never arrive, but welcome for coming on here. Before the pod, we were talking with you being first 3-time guest. We're actually not a question, but a flashback to the first time you were on the pod. We talked about this before and I was questioning whether I was actually going to bring it up on the pod, but this is going to give you a chance to redeem yourself. I like what you said. So the first time we had you on Tortillas and Takes, we asked you the worst college town in the Big 12. And you had a lot of great options in front of you, but you chose one particular city. And I want to give you the floor to either double down on the take or change your answer.
I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm not going to be doubling down on the take after the trip that I just took a few weeks ago. Look, I obviously don't remember exactly the headspace that I was in. If I had been in a better headspace, I would have more quickly answered Stillwater, which is, I think, the objectively correct question. I'm trying to actually think now, just in general, like if any of the 8 new teams would have any content for this. I don't think so. It's actually 8 pretty good cities coming into the Big 12 with the Pac-12 and the former G5s. Like Houston's great, Cincinnati's great, but it's Stillwater is just first of all the answer, but I'd be curious too, because I don't remember exactly what year I did it. Maybe I'd only made one trip out there. Maybe I was like, oh my gosh, it's the first time I've had to drive into the nothingness for 5 hours. I will say too. I made sure to drive only during daylight hours and daytime when I got there this time. One, because it just makes the trip easier, right? And if you feel like if you break down, you're not going to literally die. And two, I hate bugs, and like when it gets late at night, you are smashing through walls of that stuff late at night. So maybe I was a little triggered from that moment, but no, Lubbock is clearly not the worst college town in the Big 12.
I will give you this credit. It is the worst drive. So you are correct. As far as that drive on 84 all the way there, that is a long hour and a half from I-20, right?
Yeah.
And even if you take the north side from DFW as well, long drive. So you know what? That I will give you. It is a terrible, terrible drive in. But then you open up to the oasis that is Lubbock, Texas. So Shehan, this article that you wrote is, and you kind of prepared for it, right? Before you even posted it on CBS Sports, you kind of talked about this, like, hey, I got an article coming out that's going to really shake some stuff up, right? You kind of knew that this was going to be an article that was big, an article that people would love, and the reception from it has been absolutely incredible. Not just from Tech fans, not just from people that live in Lubbock, but I think across the college football landscape and college athletics landscape. So, what made you even decide to write an article such as this?
Well, it's funny. Obviously, you can't ignore what Texas Tech has done this offseason in the transfer portal. You can't ignore the type of players that they brought in. It's going to shape the Big 12 race. It could have impact on the national race. I mean, just frankly, right? Like, you don't see Texas Tech and number one class next to each other all that much. And I think that so much of my job is kind of identifying anomalies and trying to explain why they exist. And that was an obvious anomaly to start things off. On top of that, I mean, I've had a relationship with Joey McGuire for years now at this point, since he was an assistant coach at Baylor. I've had relationships in the Tech athletic department, to be frank. Tech, I give a lot of credit to their SID, Matt Dowdy, who is one of the best in the entire business, if not the best, frankly, in the entire business. So I knew that if I had the opportunity to get out there, I could talk to people, really get an inside view of the story. And I think that one thing, I haven't actually really talked about this, is like, one thing that I think really helped me out as well is that ESPN wrote a great article, Max Olson did, about kind of the inner workings of the actual transfer process, right? Of like actually explaining, hey, here's how they put together their board and stuff. And so in some ways, it gave me the ability and license to go a level deeper than that. And this is something that, when you talk about, I guess, the attitude of West Texas, the attitude of Lubbock, all this sort of stuff, like this is something that I've been fascinated by for 10, 15 years. Because I mean, look, there's no easy way to say this, right? I mean, the level of passion and investment that Tech fans have versus the level of success they've experienced in the last 15 years are not aligned. And you look at the other 5 power conference schools in the state of Texas, every single one of them has had national level success in the past 10 or 15 years. They've been to New Year's 6 games. They've been to college football playoffs. The one exception is Texas Tech, and I wanted to say more about that story.
Oh, I can't find that mute button. I mean, that's incredible intuition, and I think that we experience that as Texas Tech fans. People in Lubbock experience that greatly, and it's very much, everybody wants their team to win, right? Everybody's like, yeah, come on, we're either affiliated or we're close enough by. We want the most success for them. But Lubbock, we being so isolated, being such an oasis. I mean, we've talked about the drive is insane, right? But that really multiplies when you talk about in terms of, when I think of, and Albie and I talked about this a lot, when you're in bigger cities, so you're in Cincinnati, you're in DFW area, it's like, yeah, you got fans there, but like the city doesn't really care about the university. It's like, yeah, it's a part of what we are as a city, but that's not everything. Lubbock, on the other hand, I mean, we're pushing a population that's getting close to 400,000, and that's like Texas Tech strong. Like whenever it's Texas, like whenever it's football season, this city rallies around it completely. It's very much an identity of the city as a whole, and many small West Texas towns, which is a really crazy kind of in terms of like landmass of fandom. it's a really sweet thing. But like you said, not a lot of success behind that. So it's almost kind of this weird, how culty is this place? Because they ain't seeming to break. They're not breaking away from this very easily.
And I think that there's an understanding and conversation about, like, you know, at Alabama, right? Like, it's a rural fan base. Like, obviously it's not just Birmingham. It's kind of like regions of that place. But like you said, I think that what kind of sets Texas Tech apart in some ways, especially because I think that you almost can't compare it to the Eastern teams. You almost have to compare it more to the Western teams, you know, because you compare it to more Arizona, Colorado, that sort of place. And like a lot of those big landmass places, they don't have that kind of relationship the way that Texas Tech does. And so I think that it's interesting because, like, you're talking about West Texas, and I mean, even if you want to get into a little bit the geopolitics of Texas, right? Like, what makes Texas kind of a unique place and a unique climate is that it's got all these metros. It's got Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, all these giant cities. But like, there are more people who live in the open spaces than almost anywhere else in the entire country. And so you kind of have this battle in some ways. And something I got into my piece is, like, because of the geographical connection and proximity of Lubbock, like, every industry out there is impacted by Texas Tech and the success of Texas Tech. If Texas Tech folded as an institution, we're not just talking about a loss of sports, we're talking about the loss of a pipeline of professionals who really are at the center of trying to keep that region humming in so many ways.
Well, and I want to dig in. I actually want to dig into that because you really teased at this kind of larger economic issue of being the only, you know, public university of their size. I mean, near 40,000 students. You know, it's basically 10% of the city, but that you include that over the thousands of staffing, the thousands of, you know, all these different metrics, like all these different things that revolve around the university. But we mentioned it about driving in. You don't want to drive in at night because you don't want to break down in somewhere that you feel like you're going to die, right? And like, how foreign an idea is that to most of the world, right? That there's like swaths of land. And please exit the conversation, Montana, Idaho, you know, Wyoming. But like, there are swaths of land where it's like, oh, it's just me, and like me and wilderness. How much with the conversations that you've had, not only with the staff, but certainly with like Lubbockites, how much of this, and I'm going to call it the cowboy mentality, how much of this, like being out on your own, being on the edge of the wild, even though it really isn't anymore, but what used to be the gateway to the West, how much does this kind of aura fit into the way that Texas Tech fans operate, win or lose? Like this, like it's almost like this anti-fair weather fandom.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of, you feel in that sort of way that, like, it's not even really a question of options, right? It's not really a question of whether you're going to, you just are, right? Like, what you are just is what you are in so many ways. And, you know, I will say too, that there is some, I guess I would say, accommodation of what you just mentioned in terms of one thing that Kirby Hocutt, the athletic director, told me was, hey, you know what? You can get flights out of here every single day to Dallas, Houston, Austin, Denver, you know, Phoenix, all these places, right? And I'm sure that especially when you're making a pitch to athletes, like, part of the pitch is you don't have to make that drive, right? Like, you don't have to be involved with that. And so, but I think that at the same time, you compare it to other major Texas schools, like, none of the other power conference schools have this kind of experience, right? I mean, Austin, Fort Worth, Waco's very close to those locales. Houston is right there. College Station's only an hour from Houston. Like all of them have sort of a natural relationship with bigger cities. And like, again, you look at the map, it's this cluster of 5 schools, and then it's one way out here, right? And so I think that it does sort of breed intrinsically in us against the world. I think also too, you know, especially when you talk about Texas A&M and Houston and Baylor to an extent, they're much more pulling from East Texas. Like they're much more pulling from that region. You definitely get West Texas kids, but like, they're Stephenville kids. They're not necessarily Canyon kids, right? Like, they're not necessarily Canadian kids, right? And so I think that also, again, like you almost are in this position where you're competing, you know, just geographically more with Oklahoma State, Tulsa in some ways, even though Texas Tech is very much 100% a true blue Texas program.
So so with this, thinking about with Texas Tech, with being in Lubbock, being kind of secluded, I know on our pod we've had a few athletes and a few players say that one of the biggest things they talk to when they're talking to their friends that go to Texas, to go to Baylor, to go to Oklahoma, to go to LSU, is everybody always talks down in Lubbock. And I think not just athletes. I mean, we get it when we go to work, right? It's like, oh, Lubbock. It's my sister, her friend is doing med school out in Arizona in Tucson. And she was like, oh, I'd much rather be in Tucson than Lubbock. I'm like, you've never been to either place. Okay. Tucson and Lubbock are the same place. It's the same, it's the exact same. There's no difference. Tucson has a couple more buildings in downtown. That's about it. But so there's that perception. Now, James Blanchard, your boy, I know that's a guy that you've known for a while. James Blanchard said, and has said very frequently, that they told him it'd be hard to recruit to Lubbock, but that the second they get somebody in, they're actually more shocked, and the negative attention to Lubbock actually makes it easier to recruit, because recruits come in and they look and say, oh, I was told the whole city was a dust bowl. We had, we're over here at a, Top Golf on the south, or it's not called Top Golf, but it's basically Top Golf on the south side of the city. And this is nice over here. I was talking about some of the athletes that were saying before of like, man, I thought Lubbock was terrible. Then I got there and this is the nicest place that you ever see. So with some of your talks with James Blanchard, with Joel McGuire, is that kind of resonates? And you mentioned a little bit in the article, but does that kind of resonate with everything that you saw, with who you spoke to, and kind of as you've been going back and forth?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces of this. First of all, I think Texas Tech has made a very concerted effort, especially with the way that their football facility is structured, to be like, if you choose, you could basically never leave here. You could basically be here all the time, and it's an awesome place. There's tons of places to hang out. You can hang out with all your friends here. And so, like, if Lubbock isn't your favorite city in the world, we're still taking care of you, and you're still going to be good, and you're still going to have everything that you need right here in this building. But I think the other thing too, and this was probably the thing that changed my perception of where Lubbock is right now more than anything, is like, compared to other kind of these mid-sized cities that are growing, frankly, I think that Lubbock has done a really good job of trying to have things specifically that younger people and younger families would like, and have things that cater to them in ways that maybe I didn't expect, right? Like there are breweries, there are wineries, there are, like you mentioned, off-brand Top Golf. There's all this sort of stuff that like is made for me. One of the big things, right? I'm a coffee snob, and so like there are legitimately good coffee shops that would fit in places that, like Austin and Dallas. I don't know. It depends on the listener whether they view this as a compliment or knock against both cities, frankly. But like, there's some about the culture that reminds me of old Austin, right? Like where it's just very laid back, where it's very casual. There's a great live music scene, which some people got mad at me for not delving into a little bit more. And so like, but like, it has all these things. And again, like, I think that I mentioned prior to the show, like there's kind of this, I was asked a couple of times, like, you didn't take a very like necessarily cynical look at Lubbock. And I'm like, well, people know the downside. People know what they don't have. But I think that it really like exemplified in so many ways. Again, when you go in with the mindset and James Blanchard talks to you for the first time and you're like, there's nothing here. Well, it's really easy to show that, no, it's not really the case.
Well, I'd like to remind you, Shehan, you are also a young family, right? You and your wife, your beautiful daughter. You talked about how it's cheaper to build out here. You know what I mean? Let me tell you something. I already looked at housing prices in both Houston area and Dallas area and Lubbock. A lot cheaper out in Lubbock. So if you just wrote this whole article to convince your wife that you need to move to Lubbock,
I'm going to be 1,000% honest here. DFW Airport is the difference maker for me. I got to go around the country all the time. My in-laws live out in the Bay Area. That's probably the biggest thing for me. But that's not the case for everybody.
That's I will say though, when I was getting to Boomtown, I was like, "Are you about to talk about Buddy Holly?" Oh yeah, that's right. No, Lubbock, it's booming. We have a Sprouts. That's right. That's what we're going with there. So let's talk about not just Lubbock booming, but also the athletics program booming. So one of the interesting things about this article, and it's not necessarily interesting because I think it's with the noise around Texas Tech football specifically. That's what everybody's been talking about, is not just the transfer portal, not just being number one, but one guy in particular funding the bag. And it's Cody Campbell. And so you kind of talked in this article about really, and actually one of the, I think and it shouts to you, as Jeremy and I both, as we like to say, former writers. I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I ain't getting back in that bag. But
I got it in me.
Yeah, the way you set up this article was really beautiful, but you also were able to really talk about the humble beginnings of Double Eagle in itself, right? And talk about where Cody Campbell came from. Talk about just the real back history. I think a lot of Tech fans know that he used to be a former player, but as far as me, I'm like, yeah, he was a former player, and boom, 20 years later, he was a oil exec. I don't know, right? But you were able to get to kind of all that. So talk about not just the angle you took when it came to looking at Cody Campbell and how he got to where he is, but what made you take it from this angle and create the story that you did in that aspect?
Well, I think that this is one of those things, which is that there's a very easy, lazy way to tell this story. And then I think that there's a much more interesting, nuanced way to tell this story. I think the easy version of the story is this oil billionaire from West Texas gave a bunch of money and Tech became good, right? Like that's the easy way to tell the story. And guess what? That's still a pretty good article, to be frank. But I think that when I learned more about his background, and again, like I honestly roll my eyes sometimes at how much people talk about oil and wealth when it comes to Texas, and especially West Texas, right? Like I really want to dispel that in some ways, but I think that his particular story was so emblematic of the way that they're approaching this moment that there were just natural kind of partnerships when I'm putting that story together. And so, for people who don't know, Cody Campbell, John Sellers, they did not come from oil families. They did not come from rich families. I believe that John Sellers' dad was a cattle salesman, was like his big thing. And they were teammates in high school at Canyon High School. They played at Texas Tech together. And actually, they both started their careers in real estate before, I don't know if you've heard about it, the 2008 housing crisis made real estate a pretty bad investment at that time. And they kind of were like, well, what's next for us? And this was kind of a moment where it felt like oil was not going away, but like diminishing to some extent. And they went around and drove around and bought up individual land rights for farms and small plots of land, packaged them together, and sold them to bigger companies in basically a manageable way. And so their story really is less about drilling for oil, and it's more about seeing the potential of land. And so when you're talking about the idea of raising up a football program, it's such a natural comparison. And, it's funny, I didn't get Cody Campbell on the phone until basically like 12 hours before we were planning to run the story. I could do the story without him, but obviously I would have liked to have him. And I basically just needed him to say this one thing, which was, what we're doing with Texas Tech football is exactly what we did with work. And thankfully he gave me that quote, but it's just, there's so many natural comparisons with being bold, recognizing the timing of a moment, recognizing the advantages you can create, and recognizing when you can have the opportunity to invest when maybe everybody else is pulling back.
Oh, you want to talk about strategy? I think there's a lot of really key players here. Between Campbell, Blanchard, McGuire, even Hocutt, like who at this point, now that you've done all the hard work, you've had the relationships, you've put it out there, you've gotten feedback, who kind of now, at least at this moment in time, does it feel like is the most instrumental in driving this really bold strategy by Texas Tech? Because I mean, the farther it seems that we just zoom out on what's going on, the more chess it feels like, master chess level stuff is like Texas Tech is kind of getting ahead in a lot of really powerful ways. But for you, what is it? How are you looking at this right now? Who's really doing this whole thing?
So I think to preface all this, none of this happens if all of those guys aren't in place. Like all of these guys need to be who they are. Like, I don't think that this happens with Matt Wells or Cliff Kingsbury as head coach, right? I don't think that this happens. You don't have to laugh, Jeremy, but
hey, man, we big Matt Wells fans on this podcast, so you're slandering over here.
He's a very good man that I don't think was right for this job. Anyway, I think that like that doesn't happen if you don't have all these people in place. You need the salesman in Joey McGuire, the guy who can go into the community, who can recruit, who can convince people of the plan. You need James Blanchard, whose scouting background really let him be ahead of the curve when it came to recruiting the portal. But I think the visionary at the core is Cody Campbell. And the reason that I say that is, the money part is obviously huge, but he was the one who most recognized that this market may not last forever. In that again, I think that they said in the ESPN article, they plan to put $5 million into the transfer portal. It ended up ballooning to at least $10 million. Some of our reports say that it's gone even higher than that because of the opportunities that they had. And so, there was a recognition that because look, people have asked me, is this sustainable? No, it's not. But that's the point. It's not supposed to be sustainable. It's supposed to be a bet and a gamble on this season. They recognize that across the rest of the Big 12, across the rest of college football, there's kind of been this evening out. There's kind of been this, okay, here's what we're willing to spend. This is what we're budgeting. So if somebody comes in, because in year 1 or 2, we see Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Miami kind of come in with these wild swings, Texas A&M getting their number 1 recruiting class, all that. Most programs are kind of past those wild swings at this point. And so Texas Tech now, in this moment where everybody else is settled down, says, we're going to take our wild swing in this calculated moment. And I think that Cody Campbell was really the visionary who came to the table behind that. I tell this story in the piece of a meeting that Cody Campbell called in July 2024 with Cody Campbell, Joey McGuire, James Blanchard, Kirby Hoka, and one other athletics administrator. And he basically laid out this plan and said, we need all of these pieces to come into place, and we need everybody to be fully bought in. And I want to be clear, too, Cody Campbell did not provide all the money for this plan. John Sellers, Gary Peterson, Dusty Womble also deserve a lot of credit for buying in that same way. But Cody Campbell is the face of it for a reason. And I think that it's one of the reasons that I led my piece with him, is because I do think that I've said this line a couple of times in interviews, but I think it's a really important way to phrase it. This story is not one of resource. A lot of programs have resource. This is a story of preparation and deployment of resource.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out real quick that you mentioned one of the ways that that Cody Campbell, got to where he got was because of the 2008 housing crisis. So really, all of our parents voting for George Bush to be the governor of Texas in 1994 led to Texas Tech.
We all paved the way.
I am Fifth Amendment thing. I am not.
Every single Texas resident has made this possible.
Any of that.
Blame yourselves, everybody in Texas.
Jeremy, the thumbnail for this episode needs to be, the little blocks that create the big thing, starting off with the 1994 George Bush and Richard election.
That's exactly right, buddy.
2025 number one.
We could probably go even further back than that if we're being quite honest. That's a podcast for another day.
So in 1982, George H.W. Bush became the vice president of the United States. It all started there. Texas Tech number one transfer portal class. And really, it can all start by you wearing some Charlie Hustle. Charlie Hustle is a partner of Tortillas and Takes and of All 10-12 Network, and they want you to be the best dressed fan this season. So make sure to go out to charliehustle.com, right? Get you some swag. I'm actually wearing Charlie Hustle double T-shirt as we speak. Very comfortable clothes. So you want to make sure to go there to charliehustle.com, get you some swag. They're using our promo code 1012 Network for 15% off of all non-sale items. That is TEN12 Network. I believe that you're all smart enough to be able to know how to spell that out. So 1012 Network, 15% off of all non-sale items. That is Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. So Shehan, again, what has the reception for this article been ever since you dropped it? I mean, I know you can't leave your house because of paparazzi. Everybody wants to see you. I actually saw you on TMZ the other day punching a kid because he came up trying to get your autograph. I know, I get it. All right. What has the reception been like?
No, I mean, it's been pretty amazing. I think that the thing that is so cool to me, because let me back up, right? Like, here's the thing about being a sports writer is that the reality is you write a lot of content that's kind of just like about games, about whatever, right? But like, to me, I've always tried to center kind of people and stories in my writing in whatever way that I can and have the ability to at a moment. But this is easily the biggest swing that I've taken from that perspective. And I'll tell you what, I did not ask for the right to write a 5,000 word article when I booked my trip to Lubbock. That was not what I think my editors were expecting to get back from me. But, you know, it's been amazing because I've gotten messages from people who, you know, just frankly, right, are of such different walks of life than me, had such different experiences from me, being like, man, it just means so much to me that you saw what we see, right? Like that you validated what we have chosen for our lives. And, you know, I think that's, for me, it's always been a priority in my reporting to try to be that and do that for people. But I think the other thing too is, like, in a small way, I hope that, you know, it ends up building bridges for people so that they can understand that, hey, you know what, we have the ability to understand each other in ways that we might not expect. And I mean, I'll tell you too, right? Like, from a performance article on CBSSports.com, like, my editors and higher ups in the company noticed how well this story did. And I'll tell you what, the thing that's crazy too is, you know, when you talk about one of the ways that we're judged is like how long people are on a page, right? Like on our website. And this, like, just blew almost every other story that we've had in recent memory out of the water. So, like, people are actually sitting down and reading it. I've said too many nice things about Texas Tech, so I'll throw a shot. You know, and I don't know that Texas Tech is the biggest reading fan base out there. And so for that, the fact that people sat down and I said too many nice things. But the fact that the fact that people sat down and read 5,000 words, and so many people messaged me and be like, I would have read another 5,000 because of how quickly it came together and it flowed, and the experience and emotions that I had. Like, it's pretty amazing. And so I mean, like, this is easily up there with the most you know, incredible validations in my career. And you know, I just hope that this creates more opportunities and shows people that it's possible, that when you write good things that connect with people and center people, that you can still have success in this industry.
From here, it's possible.
From here, it's possible.
That's right, Sean. You get it, buddy.
That grad degree is going to look so great for you. Right.
It better be free. I ain't paying for that.
Well, so I will say you said something that's very, so Tech fans in general, right? That you validated our decision, our choice, right? When you, I came to Tech, it's funny because when I came to Tech, we were actually known for football. And my parents actually thought the reason I chose Texas Tech over Baylor, over Texas, over LSU was because of sports. That's what they thought. And I have African parents, so that's like the worst thing you could possibly do in your life is to choose a school for sports, which is, I think, hilarious to anybody under the age of 30 that I would choose Texas Tech for sports. I didn't, but just that thought that creeps in their mind. But it's choosing Tech to go to Texas Tech, choosing to live in Lubbock, you know, being in this area. So especially, honestly, I would even argue since A&M has left the conference, and for us, for Texas Tech, our primary rival being Texas in that aspect, right? A lot of the times when you're having this banter against Texas fans and against TCU fans and against Baylor fans, and you get that finger pointing at Lubbock. And I think it's a huge reason why the Chris Beard vitriol is there, right? Because you have somebody who you think is yours and you think gets it, to do what everybody else says, you know, to kind of affirm the opinions of, oh, well, you never had a chance anyway. So an article like this, I think a lot of that reception is you get it. Right now, if you posted another article the next day being like, everything I just said is wrong, Lubbock actually sucks, it's the worst, then, you might have that Chris Beard vitriol. But that aspect of it, I think, definitely does hit home, whether you live in Lubbock or not. Like, even me, I'm reading this, and like I am one of probably the 50% of Texas Tech people that weren't from Lubbock, went to school for 4 years, and then other than a couple games here or there, I haven't really been back since. Right, I haven't lived in Lubbock since. I've just visited. I would say seen Jeremy a couple times, but even last couple times I went to Lubbock, I did not see Jeremy. But yeah, no. And so I'm coming from that aspect, but it was still like I still made the choice to go to school there. I still made the choice to support this team. It's still my favorite collegiate team, and that's that validation. And then on Jeremy's side, he's the side that not from Lubbock, came to Lubbock, and despite me begging him for the last decade, he still lives in Lubbock, and it is because he's just falling in love with the community and the crowd. And so I think there was that aspect of it.
Yeah. And if I can interrupt you, it's interesting, right? Because I think back to when Matt Walls was hired, right? And I think that one thing that he misunderstood about taking this job was I think that he saw the job as being an isolated job where he could kind of just find under the radar kids and coach ball, right? Like I think because that's what Utah State was, and he had a lot of success there in that way. And like I said, I think that because of the way that it's set up and the geography, like you almost do compare it more to some of the the Western schools, like culturally more to like kind of some of the Mountain West and that sort of thing than you obviously do to like LSU or whatever. And so I think that by him, though, there was a fundamental misunderstanding of the pride of this place. And I think that when Joey McGuire took over, and I would argue his high school background is paramount to him understanding this because you had to do that at Cedar Hill High School. Like he understood my new job is to be the mayor. My new job is to be the governor of West Texas. My new job is to get out in the community and make everybody excited. And it's funny, right? I was talking to somebody else in the athletic department actually, and I was very frank. I'm like, if Joe McGuire doesn't get offered the Texas Tech job when it comes open, I don't know if he ever becomes a power conference head coach because you just kind of need this particular circumstance or series of events in some way for it to make sense. And we got passed over for Baylor back in 2019. TCU isn't coming open anytime soon. Like I think that he understands for him as well, like this was a potentially once in a lifetime opportunity. And so I think that there's this perfect marriage of two people and people in a place that want each other so badly and want each other to succeed so badly that it just really, I think, came together in a perfect way. And like I've said, I mean, look, there's a lot of coaches who have said stuff like, I want to die in this place. But like, I 100% believed it when Joey McGuire said it because you look at his career, he said it at his press conference, and I mentioned it in the piece. He's coached at 4 places in his entire career.
It's impressive.
And it's not because of lack of opportunity that happened. He has been very selective about being in the right place for him. And I think that he knew. I hope that I hope that he wouldn't mind me referring to this story a little bit. I heard about him kind of having a plan for Texas Tech well before he actually interviewed for the job at Texas Tech. He actually at this event back when he was still somewhere else, talked to me about, hey, I've got these great ideas for Lubbock. I've got these great ideas for Texas Tech. I've got these ideas. And I'm just like, dude, the job's not even open. There's no, and I'm like, that's cute. That's cute that you have these ideas to be the head coach at Texas Tech. Come on, dude. I think you're great, but be a little serious right now, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen so many of them put into effect and have success. And I think that dude's just a visionary that again, if he landed at a lot of places that weren't this, I don't know that it would have worked as perfectly as it has, because he was exactly what this place needed.
And actually, you do talk about in the article as far as him approaching Kirby, right? And there was a whirlwind of when he was hired. There was a whirlwind of support to the likes I don't think I've ever seen for football, right? Like for Cliff, when Tuberville was hired, for those that don't remember, it was kind of 50-50. Let's not go there.
Thank you for listening to the Tortillas Day podcast.
But when he was hired, it was really split between whether we go after somebody with that experience like Tuberville or Ruffin McNeil. Half the fan base really wanted Ruffin McNeil to be the head coach and kind of continue Leach's legacy, right? After Tuberville, did what he did, then it was Cliff. And mind you, at the time when Tuberville left, there wasn't a lot of options, right? A lot of people also forget this. We actually went to asking name escapes me, TCU head coach
Patterson?
Sonny Dykes, sorry. We actually asked so we actually asked Sonny Dykes. He had just accepted the Cal job and was like, hey, you want to renege on the Cal job real quick? And it's like, probably not the best thing for me to do in my career, smartly so. And so and Cliff was really the only option. It was him and only one other, the Clemson OC at the time, which even as bad as Cliff was, it was still the right choice. And so it was, and then of course there was Matt Wells. So this is really the only time that I can remember that the fan base made a decision on a coach, right? There was already a couple other guys that Kirby had reached out to, like Sonny Dykes, trying to do that again, and he chose TCU instead. And it just wasn't working out, dwindling things. And here goes Joey saying, hey, I'm right here. I know it, and I know this landscape. And I already have the support from the fan base, especially after, and then also not to mention one of the guys that turned you down in trailer is like, hey, this is the guy you need to hire. And I think all that whirlwind has accumulated to, listen, no matter what, and I haven't necessarily, as much as the fan base does like Joey, I've definitely held his feet to the fire a little bit, but numbers don't lie. At this moment, he is the one of the most, if not the most successful start to a Texas Tech head coach in program history. And so, but with all that being said, and this kind of goes to my next question, now we have the number one transfer portal class, and nobody wants to hear best start in program history, right? If he goes 8-4 again, it'll be the first person in program history to go with 4 straight, or another winning season, 4 straight winning conference seasons, and nobody will care. It won't be enough. Right? Those expectations rising, what do you think that means for Joey McGuire and this program? And do you think he's set up to be able to handle that?
Well, I asked him that question explicitly. I said, look, you could do these 8 wins for the next 10 years and retire happy in Lubbock and, probably get to retire on your own terms and be a program legend enough. I mean, like, God bless him, right? Like Spike Dykes is beloved at Texas Tech, and he won 1/2 of a conference title during his time there, right? So you could live that way. It's a pretty good way to live, frankly. And he completely, again, by doing this, by accepting this strategy, he is backing out of that strategy, right? It's no longer possible for him to live like that anymore. But it's interesting, right? I talked to him about it, and I talked to James Blanchard about it. I talked a little bit to Cody Campbell about it. I talked to Kirby Hocutt about it. I talked to some of the players about it. They know that there's pressure here, but I think that there are a couple things that flow through this that really inspire this. One, a lot of these guys weren't supposed to be here anyway. Like Joey McGuire is not really supposed to be the head coach of a power conference football program. He was coaching high schools less than 10 years ago, and now he's heading into his 4th year as the head coach at a major program. James Blanchard, right? The proverbial story is that he was assembling fire hydrants for a living before he ultimately joined the Baylor scouting department and then ended up at Texas Tech. Like Cody Campbell was a washed up NFL offensive lineman. There's so many people who aren't supposed to be here in the first place that why not go and take risks? I think the other thing too is there's sort of this understanding of, okay, well, this is the chance to change a lot about this place. I mean, one of the reasons, for example, that coaches leave to take other jobs is because they think that they have the opportunity to have more success in other places. And they don't believe that that has to be the case at Texas Tech. They believe, hey, maybe we have a pathway to take advantage of this moment. Again, I can't remember if I mentioned on this podcast yet, but like Joey McGuire's 2006 Cedar Hill team, what was in his fourth season as a coach. Prior to that team, Cedar Hill High School had never won a playoff game in Texas high school football. They go on, have a 16-0 state championship season, and it changes the perception and culture of that place. That's what they believe that 2025 can do for them. And you kind of sit there and run through it, right? Nobody can negatively recruit Texas Tech on facilities. It's very overrated how much you can negatively recruit based on Lubbock. You can't really negatively recruit based on a really good coaching staff that's had a lot of success and connections. And they believe that if it's head to head, like our staff can out recruit the hell out of you, right? Like they believe that. But like Texas Tech has not success. That's the last piece that people want to see. And so if you have success here in this 1 year window, potentially, it changes what this program and what this coaching staff can be for the next decade.
Boom or bust, right?
Boom or bust. Yeah, 100%.
So the very landman feel that this article does have.
Nice Paramount Plus promotion, right? I think that.
Go ahead. Give me.
Caught up on, I thought that people. I hope people caught up on that. No, obviously, it was actually, my editor did. When I was starting to think about the story, not because of the Paramount Plus connection, but he did kind of say, like, man, that would be like such a natural way for you to approach this. It's just like try to make it very landman feel, and it ended up obviously working out a whole lot better than I could have imagined.
I mean, we all get it. We're all on the same page here. But let me kind of expand on. This is my last question, but let me kind of tease that out, because something that my concern when we started tossing all this money was like, oh shit, okay, here comes all of the optics are on Lubbock, Texas now. All the optics are on Texas Tech. Yeah, if it works out, it's like, okay, obviously we will. Okay, here's the thing. If Texas Tech does make the college football playoff, say, let's go wild. If Texas Tech does win a natty, it will never come without the tag of like, well, you paid your players. It's always going to be that. But let's say the possibility of having a terrible season, right? Who knows what happens? Morton blows out his ACL. Our offensive line has a protest, or, somebody drunk drives through the, a la Georgia. So,
bro, you need to let your imagination stop going so wild. That's crazy. What are you doing?
The season, but the point is that the season doesn't turn out how we want it to, right? Say it's another. I mean, say it's a 7-7. Say it's like a 6-6 season, or even 7-5. But it's not like there's no conference championship, there's no CFP. I mean, the bowl game is on par, just on average, right? We're just doing whatever. Really, how big is the bust on this? Because we do talk about, like, okay, the investment portion of this, like the timing is very specific to this year. Getting the talent that we have is very specific to this year. But there's been a lot of strategic investment on facilities, on resources for coaches, longevity-wise. Like, how big a bust would it be if you don't have that boom in your mind?
Well, I think that it's, and I'll preface this by saying, look, people say that Nick Saban's Alabama teams were all but like who cares? If you have success, like nobody should care about being accused of paying players. Who cares? Well, nobody cares. But I mean, God, do you know how nice I'm sure it would feel to have people complain about the championships that you guys won instead of
That's right.
Because the downside, by the way, is being talked about like Jimbo Fisher, who paid a bunch of money and bought a bunch of players and then couldn't even win, right? So nobody should ever feel bad about that. But it's interesting, right? Because I think that the downsides are minimized in some ways because nobody expects much from Texas Tech anyway, right? Like nobody expects much from Texas Tech nationally. Nobody cares. Nobody thinks that this is a serious program in that way. Like This is a program that hasn't won an outright conference championship since 1955. They haven't won a share of a conference championship since 1993. You mentioned, right? What if there's this crazy downside where they only win 7 games? And, well, again, it's the best start, but that's still the best start to a head coaching career in Texas Tech history. So I think that the disappointment will be a lot more internal than external. But all that said, it's less about how bad the downside could be, because again, I think the downside is probably still a winning record for Texas Tech, which is not something that's been guaranteed over the years. But I think that it's more the lost opportunity. And for this, I also want to go back, 10, 15 years. In the 2000s, under Mike Leach, Tech was 8, 9, 10 wins, pretty consistently every single year. I think that whenever there's a realignment, like there was in 2011-12 with Texas A&M and Missouri leaving, TCU coming in, I think that it changes, it's an opportunity, let's say, for a change in the dynamic. And what I mean by that is you have an opportunity in some ways to reinvent yourself. If the Big 12 changed in 2009 instead of 2012, Texas Tech might be living Baylor's life right now, right? But Baylor was the team that had a Heisman Trophy winner in 2011 and won conference championships in 2013 and 14, while Texas Tech languished. And I think that you define yourself in so many ways at the beginning of these realignments. And so now I think that that's part of the calculus behind the investment. We have this new realignment where there's 16 teams in the Big 12. 8 of them have never been here. And just frankly, there are 16 teams in the Big 12. I think that 11 or 12 have a pathway to being top-tier teams. And I'd argue that probably the only one that's guaranteed a spot at that table long-term is maybe Kansas State. I don't think that anybody else has set themselves up as a no-doubt, no-brainer sort of top-tier team. I think that all of Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech have an easy pathway to that conversation. Utah, we'll obviously keep an eye on. Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham. But there are a lot of programs that have a pathway to setting themselves up as this team. So it's less, I think, that the downside for this season is all that high. I think that it's more the lost opportunity that it would create if you don't manage to prove yourself as a championship caliber program.
So you bring up something, and I wasn't going to bring it up in this setting, but there is a kind of a thought amongst some portion of the Texas Tech fan base, which is another reason to go all in at this moment, is that, listen, history is cyclical. Realignment happens all the time. Sure, the Big Ten and SEC say they're set and it's all good and we don't need to do anything more. But the next time this happens, whether it's in 5 years, whether it's in 10 years, whether it's in 15 years, they want to have a situation where if the SEC opens their doors up again and tries to swallow up anybody, Texas Tech wants to be in the best situation possible. The most attractive possible. And actually, I'm saying SEC, there could be a scenario where, the rapture happens and God condemns all of the SEC like he probably should, and the Big 12 ends up being the top dog. Either way, Texas Tech wants to fully position themselves as best. And so does it seem like that's what you kind of also have seen in itself in general?
Oh, 100%. And I'll make a comparison, right? We have these 4 former group of 5 teams that transition up to the Big 12. And I did a story on them back in 2023 when they first joined the conference. And one thing that all of them told me was essentially, we have been investing at a level that we cannot afford because we need to count on the idea of being there when the doors open again, right? Like Houston made investments that it probably couldn't quite afford. Cincinnati made investments that they probably couldn't quite afford. BYU has more money than God. I think they were pretty much good. But I think that's how a lot of these programs in the Big 12 are going to need to position themselves. And the realignment piece is always going to be top of mind, right? Like, I have no idea, right? I don't have the tea leaves. I don't know if Texas Tech has a pathway to the SEC or the Big 10. But what I do know is that I think that this level of investment allows them to be on the inside of whatever comes next. whether it is Super League-ish, whether it is as a consistent college football playoff team, especially when we expand the field potentially to more teams. Like, that's where I think you want to be. I think that if you are a top 35 team in college football year in and year out, you're going to have a place to go and you're going to be able to maintain a level of competitiveness to be considered part of major college football. And Texas Tech is proving that they're willing to do that. I think there are several other programs in the Big 12 that are continuously proving that they can do that. And that's the big thing, right? Like, one of the reasons that I think that the Big 12 is like by far the most fun conference in college football is that it's 16 programs that understand we don't have the right to rest on our laurels. We can't just sit back and let things happen. We can't be, we can't be. Illinois is a bad example right now because they're doing pretty well in football and basketball. But you know what I mean, right? Like, we can't kind of sit back and cash checks and be okay with the status quo. We have to keep pushing, whether it's even something like Colorado swinging on Deion Sanders, even if it's something like Arizona State taking a swing on a 33-year-old Kenny Dillingham. Like, we have to keep trying because, yeah, I know, right? 33 was crazy, but like, we have to keep trying. And even if you go back to the 2000s, that's the DNA of Texas Tech. Is that we ran this bullshit ass offense and tried some stuff and informed the rest of college football that you can win big this way. And I think that again, we'll have to kind of see on the field what the long-term plan looks like, but this is an off-field version of trying to lean into that moment and be prepared for whatever comes next.
And we've talked about it before, right? It's 16 cast-offs. It is 16 schools that let's face it, as much as we love the Big 12, there's not a single school in the Big 12 that wanted to be in the Big 12. Every single school in the Big 12 won, actually, with the exception of the four group of five.
Yeah, the four schools moving up are obsessed, but that's
they're obsessed. But the other 12 wanted to be saved on a lifeboat by somebody else, right? And nobody was willing to give up. Even the Pac-12, who was a dying conference, who decided for some stupid reason not to expand, said, you know what, we're not going to save you. And so everybody, that's what it started with the Hateful Eight, when all 8 of us were like, so nobody wants us. Nobody wants us. Cool, right? Kansas fans thought, oh, for sure, the Big 10 will want us. Our basketball program's amazing. And the Big 10 was like, no, why would we know? Iowa State, same thing, right? Texas Tech, we thought, oh, surely the Pac-12 will want us. Surely we'll probably be packaged with Oklahoma State. Nobody wanted us. Utah, surely will be in the Big 10 because we're big, bad Utah. We're not going to go to the Big 12. And with the remaining 12 of us, we were all told none of us are good enough. And so with that, I think to your point, all of us are like, all right, well, let's make sure that we're at least, let's all kumbaya, except for Utah for some weird reason thinks they're better. But let's all kumbaya and let's all position ourselves better. Let's take those swings and let's see what happens. Our swing just happens to be financial. So you heard it here first. Shehan Jeyarajah is saying, get your money up, not your funny up. So, direct quote.
Well, and just to say for 1 second too, like, I think that, long term, the Big 12, again, like, it's not going to be the SEC. It's not going to be the Big 10. I do think that I'm very optimistic. And by the way, I will say as well, things can change. College football changes all the time. If I had to guess today, in the next 10 to 20 years, I would guess that none of these 16 teams in the Big 12 win a national championship over the next little while, right? Like, it's possible, but I don't see that pathway right now. But I think that the Big 12, because they know their identity and because they have a group of highly invested, highly interested fans that engage and watch games and buy tickets and support their brands, I think that no matter what the future holds, there's going to be a place and a good time for all of the teams in the league.
Hey, listen, if winning a national championship got you into the SEC, Texas and Oklahoma would have never got there. Shehan, anything else you want to say to the people?
No, I mean, I just had a great time making it out. It had probably been 5 or 6 years since I had been to Lubbock, so it's changed a lot, as you can imagine, over that time period. Amazingly, the one thing that didn't change was Alan Bowman was an active player back then, and was last year too. So that was a little weird, but it was a lot of fun to get out of the tech specific areas and really get to see a little bit of Lubbock. The development down south is just ridiculous. And no, I mean, it was a great time. My wife, so I went on a Monday and Tuesday, like 2 weeks back, and my wife was thinking about coming with me, and then just had a lot of work and couldn't make it. But her best friend just moved out to shallow water, so hopefully we'll be up that way pretty soon, and I can try to convince her that no, actually there's some stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you do, she just give her that Boomtown section of the article, and she can be like, well,
Again, man, I need the airport that can go national. That's a problem for me. It's the nature of my job.
It's growing. All right, it is. Preston Smith Airport is growing. We're getting there. Okay. Shehan Jeyarajah, you can catch him on CBSSports.com. Lead writer. Eventually, he's going to own the whole website because of this article. So, make sure to read not just this article, but all of his stuff. It's always a great time. Jeremy, anything else you want to say to Shehan or the people?
Nothing. We're always thankful to have you on, and I'm sure you will continue to hear from Lubbockites. Man, we're just super thankful that you wrote such a good piece of artwork. Hang it up in the Louvre.
I need a key to the city or something, man. I don't know. You guys gotta hook me up.
I think everybody gets a key to the city when they drive. You get the tumbleweed. There it is.
Enough glazing. Let's remember Shehan is from Baylor. Okay. So no matter what, if you're like, man, this Shehan is a great guy, he's amazing, what can he do wrong? Just remember when he was 18 years old, he did wrong and chose to go to Baylor. So with that being said,
you know what? And I've gotten to see 3 Big 12 titles since then, so I don't know.
Get out of here. All right. We're past time. We're past time. All right. It's done. It's done skis. All right. So for Shehan Jeyarajah, the Baylor trader, and for the people's champ that is Jeremy Gillen, you've been listening. This is Albie Shore. You've been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 network. As always, stay wrecked, people.